Welcome everyone to the next section of Travel Diaries. In this session, Sanjay, Chikarmane and Ameeta Manjeshwar will taking us on a trip across Japan. So I'll hand it over to Sanjay for next proceedings. Thank you.
Okay, so can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So welcome everyone. So what Ameeta will be doing, as Kedar said, is walk you through our travels in Japan. Actually, this time we didn't go together. I've been about quite often to Japan, all of it through work, actually, probably a dozen times or so. But the thing is that being business trips, I never bothered to take pictures except during the last maybe 2 or 3 trips. So I don't have that many pictures. Actually, Ameeta's got a lot of them. So most of this will be done by her. What we'll be covering are these. So I'll be going first, probably about half an hour or so. I'll be covering mostly shrines. And last year I went for Sakura. Sakura is the Japanese word for cherry blossom. And the cities I'll be covering are Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. And then Ameeta will be covering a range of things, including she's got some great pictures on just lifestyles in Japan. She even followed these geisha around, and so you'll see a lot of geisha pictures and stories around that. And then she also, in addition to Tokyo and Kyoto, she also did Hiroshima and Kaio-San. So she'll be covering quite a bit here. So with that, let's begin with the basics. So first of all, the best times to visit are spring and fall. Spring especially because the sakura season blossom happens in spring. Usually it starts towards the end of March and goes until April. But every year the dates could change depending on the temperature and so on. So what they often do is to publish, if you do a Google search for cherry blossom in Japan or something like that, you will see the exact dates by city. And in fact, the dates when these cherry blossoms bloom varies from city to city. So clearly, as you go further north, the blooms happen later, and down south, the blooms happen sooner. So what you should do if you're planning on going during the spring season is to monitor the dates and plan accordingly. Fall is also not a bad time to go. You'll see a lot of fall colors. And it's a pretty nice time of the year to go as well. But not as nice as spring. And at least my personal favorite is spring. Summer is a time to avoid. It's very hot. Actually, more so, it's more humid than hot. And if you thought Bombay was humid, well, you haven't seen Japan. It's really hot and humid. It's not very bearable. So I would highly recommend not going during the summer. Winter is not only cold, but everything is barren. The trees are without leaves and things like that. So winter is also, in my opinion, not a great time to go. In terms of arrival options, there are 2 airports, Haneda and Narita. Traditionally, Narita was the place where all international flights ended up. But more recently, in more recent years, Haneda has actually become a more significant airport. At least all the US airlines have started to fly there. And as you can see from the map below, Haneda Airport actually is much more closer and more convenient to Tokyo. You can get to the city in approximately 13 minutes by train, or a little bit more if you take a taxi. Narita takes about an hour. These days there is a train called the Narita Express. There's also a bus service, but it takes about an hour. If you take taxi, it's about $200 or so. So generally speaking, if you have a choice, it's more preferable to fly into Haneda. Getting around town is through metros. They have a fantastic metro system, probably carrying more passengers than anywhere in the world. And even with so many people taking it, the trains are absolutely punctual. And so it's an experience. If you're doing intercity travel, you can get a JR pass, which you can use for traveling to some of the other places. And then the thing is in terms of the metros, you can, of course, buy tickets at the train station, but the more convenient option is to buy this thing called a Suica Card that you see at the bottom right. This is like, it's like cash. You load it up with a certain amount of cash, and then you just touch it to the turn at the station, and the gates open and you go through. And then the best part of it is you can use it anywhere. You can use it in cafes, you can use it in vending machines, convenience stores. So it's probably the most convenient thing I've seen in terms of payment. And of course, credit cards are widely accepted, but the best thing to do is to load up a Suica card with a few $100s. And then at the end of it, if you still have money left on that at the airport or anywhere, actually, you can get a refund for whatever money is on there. So highly recommended. Okay, so some additional pointers. So the hotels in Tokyo, Japan actually are all very nice. Most hotels in Tokyo are great. But there are, being a big city, it's also expensive and it's also crowded. So if you're not lucky enough to get a good hotel because it's crowded or whatever, some of the other hotels are actually quite small and cramped. There is a difference between Western hotels and Japanese hotels. Western hotels are where foreigners mostly stay. Japanese hotels are quite an experience. You should book early if you're going during the sakura seasons because the hotels get full. In fact, last year when I went during sakura season, it was a last minute trip. And all the Western hotels, the hotels I normally stay at were all sold out. So I had to stay at a Japanese hotel. And that's quite an experience because the ceiling is probably about 1 foot higher than your head. When you go into the room, there's a queen size bed and the walls are just about 6 inches, surrounding the bed, not much space to go around. When you get into the bathroom, you actually have to step up, so the seating is even shorter. And then there's a 3-foot bathtub. And finally, you have a commode. And if you've seen the Japanese commode, they are full service, right? They do everything for you. But the problem is all the buttons are marked in Japanese, and if you press the wrong button, you're in for a very interesting experience. So plan ahead, especially if you're going during the peak season. And then in terms of food, there's a limited vegetarian food available. Actually, Ameeta can probably talk more about this. I think you had a friend, Ameeta, who was actually vegetarian, so maybe you can add some color to this.
Yeah, so I had a friend who was vegetarian, and both trips, I've done 2 trips. One was a conducted tour, and second one was on my own with the group of 4 of us, of which both cases there was one vegetarian. Shobha was a vegetarian. As part of the conducted tour, it was amazing because the Overseas Adventure Travel made arrangements for her and a few others on the group, so they got vegetarian food, both in terms of Japanese food as well as very often, and every alternate day there was like Western food. So you basically got a full spectrum of vegetarian food. Unfortunately, the Japanese food, if you really want to try, it's very limited. So I had initially told her, I said, especially in Tokyo, and that was my first time, I said, I'm not going to come looking for a vegetarian place. So we formed 2 different groups. And the guide at one point said to us that there is this vegetarian place for the yakitori and for the I forget what the name of it is, the one with the cabbage, where they make those cabbage and chicken and all that stuff. I have it on my slide anyway. So the guide called and asked if there was vegetarian food. And she said, yes, there's vegetarian food. We make it with tofu. And then Shobha asked her, make sure it's not on the same pan. And she said, no, it's always on one pan. So if somebody is really picky on what you want to eat, then it's really difficult. But all through Japan and all through all these small places, there are these Zen Buddhist restaurants that have pure vegetarian food. Unfortunately, when you're a visitor, what happens is, and so if you go live there, there's no problem. You'll find these Buddhist places to eat at. But when you're a visitor, you're spending literally from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night trying to get all the sights in. But then when you go look for a restaurant, then you end up looking where you are and close to where you are, and that's where the problem arises. So with my second friend, when we did on our own, I warned her, and so she carried all those little packets that you get, the upma and poha and all that. And then you find very good ramen places where some of them openly advertise vegan food. So you got to really look for something. So anyone going who's vegetarian and is picky, I would say carry those little packets with you. All the hotels, all of them have warm water, hot water, little carafes of hot water. You make your own. And none of the supermarkets also, you can really go and find pure vegetarian food that's ready to eat. Everything has got something or the other. So back again, bottom line is take your pick. If you're not picky and you want to try something, then take a chance. But if you're not, then carry your stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then also, if there are plenty of Indian restaurants and some really good ones too, especially in Tokyo and even Kyoto, Osaka, there's some really good Indian restaurants. So, Indian restaurants are everywhere. So anyway, moving on to, so what I'll do now is to go to the actual photos.
So while you're looking for the photos, I'll just tell you one thing about what happened with the Indian food. I had told my friend, I said, again, I've gone to Japan. I want to try Indian food. And so, I don't want to try Indian food. I want to have Japanese. And finally, on day 15 or 14 or something, she asks me, she says, okay, where are we going? Should we go to the same place where there was an Indian restaurant and a Japanese restaurant? And I very sheepishly had to tell her, no, I'm craving Indian food, so I'm coming with you. I don't want to go and have the Japanese food. So that happens.
All right, so let's get into it. So the first couple of pictures actually are from Narita. So if you ever transit through Tokyo, and actually Srilekha and I were traveling to India a couple of years back, and we had a 4-hour layover in Narita airport. And so actually Narita itself, I wouldn't, of course, go there specifically for that, but if you are transiting, it's not a bad place. So the one attraction, there are a couple of attractions, one of which is this statue of Buddha. They call it, by the way, Buddhas are called daibatsus in Japan. So this is like a standing daibatsu, and you'll see other examples as well that Ameeta will show us. But this is supposed to be the largest standing Buddha temple in Asia or something like that. I don't know, that's what we were told, but it is pretty large, as you can see here. Also in Narita is this shrine, and this is a very nice one, very picturesque. This is a Buddhist shrine actually, and in fact they even have services, and while we were there was actually a Buddhist sermon going on, and so we went inside and sat. It was all in Japanese, so we couldn't make much of it, but still it was a quite interesting experience. So from there, Tokyo. So this is, these, like I said, these are all from different trips. This is from a different trip that where I was in Tokyo. This is the Asakusa area of Tokyo, and there is a shrine, and the shrine is called the Sensoji Shrine. It's a Buddhist shrine. And by the way, I'll be covering a lot of shrine. And before I do that, let's maybe just talk for a minute about religion in Japan. Actually, Japan is not very religious at all. About 2/3 of the people actually identify with no religion. But of the remaining third, the two religions that are dominant are Shintoism and Buddhism. Shintoism is as old as Japan. It is the original religion of Japan. And then Buddhism came much later in 6th century or something like that. And actually a lot of people who practice religion practice both. So, it's not like, okay, I'm Buddhist or I'm Shinto. Most people tend to go back and forth between these religions. And so this one, which is called Sensoji Shrine in Japan, is a very large shrine. In fact, it's advertised as attracting the most number of religious visitors to any shrine in the world, 30 million or so every year. So it's a very well-known shrine. And so this is the gate or the entrance to the shrine. The train station is right opposite it. So when you get off, this is what you see. And then when you go inside, sorry, this is a little bit out of sequence here, but when you go inside, there's a long street that actually takes you to the shrine. And on either side of the street, as you can see here, you have traditional Japanese goods that people can buy before you actually go to the shrine. And then when you, and this is a continuation of the same street. And then finally, when you get into the main grounds, this is the main shrine. So the interesting thing about this is, although this is a traditional building, it's been updated. So the roof is actually made of titanium, but it looks very traditional. And of course, titanium, because it's strong and lightweight and things like that. So it's part of one of the recent renovations. It was upgraded. But this is basically a Buddhist shrine. However, right next door is a property, which is what you can see here. It's a pagoda with 5 stories. And this is actually a Shinto shrine. And so you've got a mix of both, more or less in the same complex here. This is another view of the Buddhist part of the complex. And then this is, as you go into the same building, you can see people lining up to get inside. And another view of the Shinto shrine, the pagoda, and yet another view here. If you go at night, it's all lit up, as you can see, and it looks really, really beautiful. It's very serene and nicely lit. And the crowds are also less in the evenings. During the day, you tend to have a lot of tourists, and the place is quite crowded. So if you go in the evening, it's really nice. And then this is the same, the Buddhist part of the complex. And here is a picture where you can see a little bit of the Buddhist part and then the pagoda straight up front. Now, this is a different part of Tokyo. This is the Ginza part of Tokyo. Ginza is a big shopping district. It's also quite commercial. But the one part, apart from all the modern aspects of Ginza, is this place, which is called the Kabuki-za. Kabuki is the traditional Japanese theater. And this is sort of the main place where it all happens in Tokyo. So they have daily shows. It's definitely worth taking in one of these shows. It's traditional Japanese theater. Now, the thing is that it's all conducted in Japanese. So you probably will not be able to understand a word of it. They do give you this playbill like they do in any Broadway show, which you can get an English version. It tells you what you're about to see. But still, when it actually happens, it's all in Japanese. But still, once, it's definitely worth the experience. It's a very nice building on the outside, and as you can see. And then around this, there are, some very nice restaurants, both Japanese as well as Indian, actually, around this place. This last part of Japan is an area called, at least of Tokyo, rather, in my photos. This is an area called Shibuya. Shibuya is very famous. If you've seen some of these pictures, there is of Tokyo rather, there is this large intersection, and there are 7 crossings, right? You can cross from one side of the street to the other in 4 different corners. So you get 4 crossings there. Plus you can cross diagonally at the same time, right? It's quite an experience. And I've got a video of it. I'm not sure if the video will show very nicely over Zoom, but we'll see it in a second. But the other part that is sort of iconic about Shibuya is this dog. Long ago, what is the name of this dog? Do you remember? Hachiko, that's right. If you heard about the legend of Hachiko, it's also an English movie, by the way. There was this dog who every day his master used to go to work from this same station, and the dog would be waiting there from morning until the owner came back in the evening. And in the evening, the dog would be reunited with the owner, and finally they would go home. One day, the dog actually, the owner actually died, but the dog would still keep coming to the station day after day and wait for the owner, and in the evening go back on his own. So in memory of the dog, they built a statue. It's a big tourist attraction, and like I said, it's also a famous movie. Okay, so this, I don't know if this will come through well in Zoom, but this is the intersection I was talking about. Take a look. So this is the signal is not yet, people are waiting. You can see a big group of people there. Now the signal is just turned green, and you can see people crossing in all directions, in 7 different directions, diagonally, straight, and so forth. And pretty soon the intersection is just crammed with people. So that's, anyway, so it's hard to, you don't get the full impact in the video, but it's certainly a place that's worth experiencing. So that is a quick, that's all the photos I had of Tokyo. As I said, Ameeta will have more. What I'm going to do now is to switch to a different album here. And this will be about Kyoto and Osaka. So bear with me for a second while I share this. Okay, so here we go. This is Kyoto and Osaka. So put it in slideshow mode. Okay, there we go. So Kyoto is a place which is very famous for shrines. In fact, it has something like 13 shrines that are all World Heritage Sites. So it's a very spiritual place. And if you were to sort of think about which is the cultural capital of Japan, that would be Kyoto. In fact, Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan as well before Tokyo was. And so it's a very nice place to go if, it's very spiritual, as I said. So this is the first shrine. This is a Zen Buddhist shrine. It's a pretty iconic one. Anytime you see a travel brochure about Japan, you will likely have seen this. So this is like I said, it's a Zen Buddhist shrine that is got made with gold leaf. At one point in time, all of this gold leaf had sort of peeled off. The place was in neglect, and then I think it was in the 50s or 60s the government restored it, and it's a beautiful place. So you have this thing, and then here's another view of it. There's a lake surrounding it. It's very serene. You can walk around the shrine. There are many smaller shrines around it, and it's a very nice place to go in Kyoto, and that is called the Kinkakuji Shrine. Now this is another shrine. This is actually a Zen. It's a Shinto shrine in contrast to the previous one, which is a Buddhist shrine. And the thing about this shrine is that it's a particular sect of Shintoism. And the characteristic of this shrine is that there are two foxes that are guarding every entrance. And you'll see a lot of these in this whole shrine. Now, the significance of these foxes is that they are supposed to be messengers. But the other thing about these foxes is that every one of them has something in its mouth, and that is basically a key. And the legend has it that the key is a key to the local granary, and then the foxes on the one hand guard that key, and so you see them at these shrines, at any of these Shinto shrines of this particular sect. This is a very common sight. So here's another one at the same shrine. And the thing about the shrine is it is located at the base of a mountain. And there are streams that come down from the mountain, and those streams are channeled into these areas that you see here. And then people, scoop up some of the water from these troughs here and actually drink them. Another look at the same shrine. The other thing that's pretty characteristic of this particular shrine is these gates. There are over 100 of these gates that are placed very close to each other. And so you can actually walk through this. And this actually leads to a trail, which is about 2 miles long, that goes all the way up the hill where this is located. And every so often is a small shrine that you will come across on the way that we'll see here. But the entrance to these gates itself is a very famous landmark, and a lot of people go here just to see this. And then, as you can see here, when you come out of those gates, there's actually a trail, and you can see on the right side, just behind this fence, is a trail that goes, that winds its way up the mountain here. And along the way, you'll see many other smaller shrines. Like you can see here, this is a shrine as well along the trail. And you see several of these all the way go up. On the way, some of these shrines have things like tea ceremonies and things like that, so you can actually stop and partake in one of those tea ceremonies. So it's a very nice experience. This is also at the same shrine. And finally, this is back on the way down. You can see another fox there. And then finally, when you exit the shrine, this is, these are just some souvenir shops. Okay, so this is a different shrine. This is also a Buddhist shrine. Actually, there are more shrines that are Buddhist than you know, the Shinto ones. And this one is called Kiyomizu Dera. And the thing about this shrine is that, and you'll see this in a couple of seconds, is that there is a large central structure with a big wooden deck, and that is characteristic of this one. And this shrine is located at the base of a waterfall. And actually Kiyomizu Dera means pure water place or something like that. So this is also one of the major shrines of Kyoto, a lot of visitors. So this is, you know, going up to the main structure of the shrine. And this is one of the main structures. There's another one coming up. You can see the pagoda there. And then this is also at the base of a waterfall, like I said, and one of the things you'll see in Japan quite often is this place where they collect the water from either a stream or a waterfall or wherever that's located. The water is actually quite pure, and people pretty much drink out of that. It's supposed to be purifying. And then this is what I was talking about, which is the large central structure, which has a big wooden deck. And you can see another view of it here, which is the same thing. And then this is the inside. You have some very nice traditional Japanese chandeliers and other decor inside. And then at all of these shrines, you see Japanese women. Normally, you know, they don't dress up in kimonos, but when you go to these shrines, you see a lot of them dressed up in traditional costumes, and in this case, taking some pictures of each other. Okay, so then Osaka. Osaka is a city that is very close to Kyoto. So if you go to, sometimes people tend to go to Osaka first, stay there, make that the base, and then go to Kyoto. And when I was there, I went on a business trip, so I had some business in Osaka. So I actually stayed in Osaka and then made a day trip to Kyoto. But this is Osaka. Osaka, there's actually not a whole lot to see. It's a big commercial center. It's a very large port city, but Kyoto is very close by. But there is one thing about Osaka that's worth seeing, and this is also a World Heritage Site, and it's the Osaka Castle. So there was several hundred years back, there was a shogun, and the shogun built this castle. And this castle is actually 5 stories on the outside, as you can see here, but on the inside, it's actually 8 stories. And the whole place is a museum today. So you can actually go to, you know, walk up each level, and there are all kinds of artifacts that talk about Japanese history and the life of shoguns and the life of this particular shogun and so forth. So if you're close by, or even if you're in Kyoto, most people actually, when you're there as a tourist, go to Kyoto and not so much Osaka. But it's worthwhile making a day trip to Osaka because this is a very nice place to see. And then around this castle is also a very beautiful garden. And then finally, when you go all the way up, you get a nice panoramic view of Osaka. As you can see here, there's a very nice garden. You can actually stroll through these gardens, very, very serene, very peaceful. And then, you know, more of Osaka here. So that's it for Osaka. So what I'm going to do next is to switch to I'm going to see if I can switch without having to unshare, but the problem is there's a toolbar that sits right on top. Looks like I have to stop sharing and switch my tab and then share again. Okay, so that was, like I said, Kyoto and Osaka. What I want to do now, so the last time I went to Japan, about spring of last year, was during the Sakura season. And Sakura, as I mentioned, is the cherry blossom season. And so this time I actually took my real camera along. All these other pictures were you know, from either iPhones of different vintages. But this time I took my camera along because I wanted to photograph Sakura. So here we go. Now the thing about the sakura season in Japan, it's really magical. Because they've got all these cherry blossom trees all over the place. And these cherry blossom trees are also different species. And so some of them bear white flowers, some of them bear pink flowers, some of them are small, some of them are very large, so on and so forth. But the whole place is absolutely magical. You don't even have to go to a special place to see these things. In fact, this scene that you see here was right outside my hotel, right? So, we ended up seeing quite a bit of these cherry blossom trees in bloom right outside the hotel. So this is inside the hotel. As you can see, this particular type of cherry blossom tree has pink flowers. And these are just the grounds of the hotel. And you can see more here. Now, the other thing that is characteristic of the cherry blossom season is the Japanese people like to actually sit under the cherry blossom trees and eat. So these could be picnics. I think they're called hanami in Japanese. And so during the cherry blossom season, you see all these families that sit under cherry blossom trees and have picnics. But a lot of the restaurants, what they do is they serve food outside under the cherry blossom tree. So this is actually a restaurant. On the right side, as you go up those stairs, there is an actual restaurant. But because of the cherry blossom season, they put this furniture outside here, so you can actually sit under these cherry blossom trees and eat while all the petals are slowly falling on you. So it's a very nice atmosphere. This is a little shrine on the same grounds as the hotel. As you can see, there are cherry blossom trees on either side. You can see more of it here. So you literally, if you stay in a decent hotel, it's more than likely that right around your hotel there will be tons of cherry blossom trees, as you can see here too. I'm just flipping through some of these scenes here. This is also the scene at the hotel. You can see there's a goldfish pond, a lot of trees around. And this is the place where I stayed last time was Shinagawa. And if you go to Tokyo, this is a decent place to stay. You have a good choice of hotels, but also since if you're traveling to Japan, you most likely won't just be going to Tokyo. You're probably going to be going to Kyoto and Osaka and other places as well. And if you do that, most likely you'll be taking the bullet train. And there are only 2 stations in Tokyo from where bullet trains leave. One is called Tokyo Station, and the other one is Shinagawa. And so as you can see here, there is a sign here for Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. And so it's very convenient if you happen to go to Tokyo to actually stay near one of these 2 stations, because then you don't have to, travel with luggage just to, get to the station. You can literally walk across the street. So Shinagawa and Tokyo are the 2 stations from which you can do that. And then you can see the bullet train here. So this was basically I was in the process of going from Tokyo to Kyoto during the sakura season. Now, like I said, you can just about see cherry blossoms anywhere, right? You don't have to go to any place special, but there are a few special places that a lot of tourists go to. One of them is the Meguro River in Tokyo, and you can see the river going through here. And then on either side of it, there are these cherry blossom trees, and their branches pretty much droop on top of the river. And then those trees are all lit up with these lanterns. Those lanterns are also sort of pink colored light, which goes very well with some of the pink flowers. And the whole place looks really magical, as you can see here. This is another view of the Meguro River. As you can see, the trees here. And then on the sides of either side of the river, you have restaurants and cafes and things like that. So it's awesome just to, come here in the evenings, take a walk with all these cherry blossoms around. This is the same street during the day. So you can see here that now you can see the lanterns here a little bit more clearly with the sort of the branches coming, on top of the river. And the river itself is an interesting sight because all of these petals fall down into the water, and then as the water flows, you see all these petals flow by. More here. And here's a picture right through the blossoms looking into the river. And then here's a lantern, and actually it turns out I was wondering what all the script is on these lanterns, and I asked someone, and they said it's actually advertising. So all these local businesses, they rent space on these lanterns and they advertise. Okay, so then so Meguro River is one place which is a go-to place in Tokyo to see these blossoms. The other place is an area of Tokyo called Shinjuku. Shinjuku is another very commercial place, actually. It's also very famous for these pachinko parlors. Pachinko is a place where the Japanese go to gamble. And this place called Shinjuku is full of these pachinko parlors, and it's also very commercial, lots of modern buildings. But there is one place within Shinjuku called Shinjuku Gyoen, and this is a large park within that area. And again, during the cherry blossom season, this is one of the places you must go. Even without cherry blossoms, it's a beautiful place, as you'll see here soon. So the place is full of these lakes and bridges and trees. And many of those trees are cherry blossom trees, as you can see in the distance, but it's extremely beautiful, very serene, as you can see here.
Yes.
As you can see, here's a close-up of a bridge. Extremely beautiful. You can just go spend a whole day here. It's very lovely. You can actually sit under one of these trees and do a picnic. And here are some of the sakura trees in bloom. You can see more here. And a lot of these trees are cherry blossom trees are, some of these species are really big. As you can see, they droop on top of the streams. And what I also saw this time during Sakura season is a lot of these Japanese women, they wear these Sakura themed kimonos, and then they have these traditional umbrellas, and then they come out and take pictures of themselves. They actually have a photographer in tow. Maybe it's a family member, I don't know. But it's a photo shoot event for a lot of Japanese women. And so while there was a photo shoot going on, I managed to steal a photograph myself. Luckily, I had a telephoto lens, so I didn't have to go too close and disrupt what was going on. And then you can see more cherry blossoms here. Notice the water here, right? A lot of those petals eventually fall down into the water, and then you have all these petals floating around the water. And again, it's a very beautiful sight. This is another site there that doesn't have much cherry blossom around it, but still you can see some of the topiary here, which are some of these traditional Japanese trees and a Japanese lantern, very peaceful. Here's another big cherry blossom tree. You can see it's in full bloom. And you can see the water behind it with all the petals. And then we have all these structures. Again, very serene, very peaceful. Another Japanese, another cherry blossom tree. So this is again Shinjuku Gyoen, which is the big park in Shinjuku. Now here you can see some people actually out. You can see a few people sitting. As I was mentioning here, this is this practice is called hanami, where these families go out and sit under these cherry blossom trees, have picnic or just talk. It's very festive. This is not, you don't see as many people here. Some of these parks can get really crowded with people. Here's another scenery here with the trees. And then this one I like particularly because a nice contrast between the blossoms on the left and what looks like, I don't know if it's a dead tree or the tree just hadn't gotten its leaves yet in spring. But I just like the scene. I took a couple of pictures of this. And then here you see a stream full of petals, with water flowing through. Okay, so now so that was all Tokyo. And now I'm transitioning over to Kyoto, right? You saw some pictures of Kyoto earlier, but that was wasn't during spring. And so this trip I made specifically this time around to catch the sakura. But there is one part of Kyoto which is worth going, which is a little outside of Kyoto. And this is it's called the Arashiyama bamboo forest. And as the name implies, it's a thick forest full of bamboo. And then through that forest are these paths that are made through the bamboo. So I can actually walk through these paths, as you can see here. And either side of this, the path is these bamboo fences. And then, what they've done is to take these dried bushes and sort of attached to the fence. So that makes up, all that makes up a fence. And it's very nice to walk through these very dense bamboo forests. Now, this place can get very crowded as well. So if you look at the bottom of the picture here, where you look very closely, you can see a huge mass of people walking through these bamboo forests. So it's a very popular tourist destination. But also there are some private homes here. So there are actually people living there in these private residences. These are, I would think, fairly wealthy people that have these estates in the bamboo forest. And they have these cycle rickshaw kinds of things that go in and out, taking people in and out. And then from the Arashiyama bamboo forest, I went back to Kinkakuji. You saw the pictures of these things earlier. But what I discovered was that this place doesn't have too many sakura trees, right? So actually I couldn't find many cherry blossoms here. But still, it made for a nice trip. This place is always worth visiting a couple of times. There was a great blue. I like to photograph birds, as you know, as you saw from the Galapagos trip. There was actually a great blue heron that was perched on this rock down at the bottom left that you can see here. So that made for a nice shot there. And then, a few more pictures of the shrine. There's another great blue heron here at the bottom of the picture. So it's got some interesting bird life as well. All right, from there, the other part of Kyoto, again, Kyoto, you'll see cherry blossoms all over the place, but here again, there are a few must-go places during cherry blossom season. And this one is called the Philosopher's Path in Kyoto. It turns out that one end of this canal that you see is Kyoto University. And on either side of this canal is a stone path, a very pleasant stone path with these cherry blossom trees, the branches sort of forming sort of a canopy over these paths. And the reason it's called Philosopher's Path is that these people who study philosophy would walk down this path all the way down to Kyoto University. And during the Sakura season, it's really beautiful. And so very serene again. A lot of tourists too, but this is a must-go place as well. So here's another view of the same Philosopher's Path. And then there are some shrines around there that you can see. There's a picture here. And this is it. This is back to the first picture. So that concludes my portion of this presentation. And now over to Ameeta. And Ameeta, I need to bring up your pictures here.
Yeah, great presentation, Sanjay. And so thanks everyone. I mean, it's been great trying to present this to you. And it's Sanjay is a very hard act to follow. So, and also switching gears, completely switching gears, is that my take on my travel is very different from some of the others. So I don't sometimes remember the names of the shrines. I see them, I find them absolutely gorgeous, but my whole travel is based on people, their lives, the lifestyles, the food, and it's all very, very little bit different. I did all the shrines that Sanjay talked about. We went through the Shinto signs, the Buddhism signs and everything. But in fact, my piece of the presentation is more concentrated on the lifestyles, because I knew that Sanjay had done a whole bunch of things on the actual shrines. So, so let's begin. So I've done this trip twice. And luckily for me, both times were during the Sakura season. Both were planned, timing of the Sakura season, because I liked it so much. And you really have to go to believe and see. You got to see to believe how gorgeous the sakuras are, or how beautiful the whole area is for during the sakura season. So the only difference between my two trips was one was in 2017 and one was in 2019. In 2017, I went with a conducted tour. And in 2019, I went with 3 other friends. And you get a completely diverse perspective on Japan. What I got with the conducted tour, I didn't get when I went on my own. And then exploring Japan on your own, getting into the subways on your own, trying to find out places on your own is a complete different experience altogether. The advantage with the conducted tour was that I was able to do so many interesting activities. And as I go through my slides and pictures, I'll talk about those activities that we went through, which maybe if you go on your own and you do a lot of research or you've heard of from different people who have been before, you can still look for and do. But for us, it was just a breeze. I mean, we learned to make sushi, we learned to make soba noodles, we did Japanese origami, we did flower paintings, all kinds of things. So it's just completely different perspective. Now with my pictures, they're a little bit mixed because I was trying to get the best ones for you and for this presentation. So as I go along, I can sometimes point out to you what was before and what was after. So then we can actually move on, Sanjay. So this was basically, it was my first picture I took on the day that I landed in Japan. This is at Narita Airport. At the point of time when we went, we had debated between going through Narita or Haneda. And for some reason, don't remember whether there were no flights or there were no direct flights or the timing was more convenient to go to Narita. And also, one other thing I forgot to tell you just before that is one of the things that we did before going to Japan is in addition to the Suica Card that Sanjay talked about, we also got something called a JR Pass. Now this JR Pass is a 20-day, 12-day, 10-day pass, which allows you unlimited travel intercity. So literally with that one pass, we were able to cover the entire areas that we were planning to see when we did this on our own. And all you do that, and I can talk more about it when we get to the bullet trains, but now when it's on the top of my head, what I want to tell you is that the train system in Japan is like none other. I mean, I've gone to so many countries, and everywhere you go, the train system is pretty amazing compared to what we have over here. But what's in Japan is just unbelievable. So when you buy your JR Pass, it's an open-ended pass, and we got the first class ticket because that's what they recommended, where you can make reservations. Now, when you make a reservation, you just go, you come out of the station, you get into the station, and then you reserve your ticket. Generally, what you do is you reserve it for a day later or a week later. And then when you're returning, you can actually book it for the next forward journey. But what is unbelievable is you go to the station, you get your seat number, you get your bogie number, and when you get onto the train station, you'll find the numbers up there, and the train stops, and all you have to do is just walk into it. It stops exactly where your compartment and pretty much your seat is. It's unbelievable. And when I say they're on time, they're on the dot. It's not a minute late and not a minute early. And if at all there is, say for example, one day they're about 2 minutes to 3 minutes late, I believe next day the Japan Railway prints a whole apology to the Japanese in their newspapers because they were 3 minutes late or 5 minutes late, and they've never known to be more than 5 minutes late, which was just unbelievable. The other thing about Japanese travel is the way you are treated when you're in the train. There is absolute pin drop silence. Even if there are kids and there are families, nobody talks. It makes for really beautiful, comfortable travel. Some of them bullet trains you can't see outside because they go so fast, but some of the slower trains you can watch the countryside roll by in perfect silence. And the other thing that really, really impressed me is the politeness of the conductors. One time we were sitting in one of the compartments, and they never go out of the compartment with their back to you. All of you know about this whole, the bowing system that they have. So that day when this conductor kept going out of the train, I was trying to count the number of times he went in and out and bowed, like that one from one station to the other, he literally bowed 5 times. I mean, sorry, 15 times. So literally they go out, they're walking with their back to you, they turn around and bow to the entire compartment, which it really kind of touches your heart. It's really something so polite, you know. So can move. So basically, Japan consists of four islands, and where we went in Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and Hiroshima, where I did, is all on the main island, which they call the Honshu Island. And then I think it's just Nagasaki is one of the other iconic places that is just on the Kyushu Island, which is across from Hiroshima. Unfortunately, for lack of time, we were able to only go to Hiroshima, and were not able to do Nagasaki. But then I believe the northern islands and all that are supposed to be really, really gorgeous, though there is not much heritage sites and shrines to see. But hopefully one day we'd like to go back. And also coming back to why I did this twice in such a short period of time. After my first trip to Japan, I absolutely fell in love with Japan. Something about the place, the culture, the people, everything. I was so impressed that I actually made up my mind that I would go there, live for 3 months to get the whole feel of it. But then when these 2 friends of mine who had lived in Japan for 10 years were going back, and so my friend and I joined them and decided to go. So I really got a feel of Japan the way I would have if I had lived there for 3 months, because we literally did everything pretty much on our own. So Tokyo, I really don't have much. We didn't spend much time in Tokyo, and whatever we saw in Tokyo, Sanjay has covered. I just got 1 picture or 2 pictures of the lights of Tokyo. It's spectacular at night, and pretty much everything was, you know, what Sanjay had covered. The day life is great. The nightlife is just amazing. The entire area is blaze of color, neon signs and people walking, and you can just literally walk and spend hours and hours and not get tired of it. But a lot of people say that beyond that, and then during Sakura season, all those walks, there's not that much you can do in Tokyo other than the theater and everything else that Sanjay, you mentioned. So again, this was one of the iconic pictures of Tokyo. When we were kids, we'd see this and, you know, always wonder whether this kind of a thing really exists. And you really have to go to see and believe how beautiful and what the site is, where everything is not only lit up, but the whole place is spotlessly clean. So now, one of my favorite part of Tokyo, like I said again, I like, for me, any place I'm more fascinated with the people and the lifestyles and all that kind of stuff. So ever since I'd seen the movie for the Secret Life of a Geisha, I was really, really very interested in finding out what and we were hoping we would see the geisha. The first time when I went to Japan through the first trip, we had very little opportunity. So you can actually skip forward. And this was one, and this is actually, we spotted her at the same place that Sanjay was talking about, which is this wide street, which has, you know, where you have these crossings that are huge crossings, and they're diagonal crossings. And we saw her across the street, and the entire group of us, we were my friend, myself, and about 10 others, we literally ran across the street to kind of catch a glimpse of this particular geisha. Now, this street is where Sanjay was mentioning. There are a lot of tea houses, and all these geishas come there to serve tea. But I believe most of the time they come in through the back entrance, etc., and you don't get to see them. But I thought I was really, really lucky to get to see the geisha. Then we actually learned a lot about the geishas. So there's a difference between the novice and the experienced one. Now, if you look at this particular geisha, she's what they call a maiko. So the geishas go through a 12 to 13 year period of training. they initially start with training in all the musical arts, the dance, the cooking, the tea services. And at a certain point of time when they feel that they are ready, then they're transferred to a mentor who's a geisha. Now I can't remember the name, what her name is. And then they start working with a geisha. There are two ways of differentiating between a maiko and a geisha. One is if you look at her lip, and I don't know if you can see this in your slide, but the lipstick is only on the lower lip. They do not have lipstick on the top lip. And then if you go next, I mean, you'll see next, then on the next slide, they have this marking on the back, actually one before. They have this marking at the back of their neck, so that a maiko can be identified both from the front as well as the back. So most of the other slides with the geishas, we were very lucky to see it when we were on our own, because if you go to the Ginza area where all of them are, there are the restaurants and tea houses, there you really get to see them a lot. And then we also had opportunities to go so some of the performances that they put up. So now the next few are just just our various sightings of geishas. Sometimes there was a photo shoot, and this particular geisha was in a photo shoot, and this was during the sakura season. So during the sakura season, there were tons and tons of geishas who would come out for their photo shoots. So we were really, really lucky to be able to see them. Now, one question that we actually asked our guide is, I don't know how to say it. I mean, I hope I'm saying it correctly, but whether the geishas are actually prostitutes or not. And all the guides completely insist that they're not. They're pure performers and entertainers and tea drink servers. But then when I came back, and we actually came back to our hotel and we researched, and we found out that it was not so, that they are not forced into prostitution, but they could actually opt to prostitution if they want to. So, it was just very interesting to find out how they absolutely insist that the guide insisted that they are not. And many other places where they give you history and talk about them, you kind of get that feeling that, get the impression that they say that they are not. So this one was when we actually went for a performance. And I think this was one of the performance where there were these geishas meeting their clients and then taking them into the theater for the geisha performance. And then the geisha performance was okay. It was just there, the music and very, very soft dance and with the fans and beautiful, beautiful backdrops. They didn't allow us to take a lot of pictures inside, but they were at one or two performances, they actually gave you permission to take a picture. So if you go to the next couple of slides, I think I should have. So these were all geishas taking their clients, and they were waiting outside, and then they would get 4 or 5 people joining them, and then they all went into the theaters. I don't know what this was. We found this very cute. She was laughing at something somebody had said, and I got the picture, and I was just, what a contrast to me was. And that's the other thing, is their faces, they're not so fair. They use some kind of a paste on their face, and you can tell the difference between her hand and the face color as to thing. And so that's what I was really impressed with. They're beautiful. They've got such beautiful features, but no matter where you go in the world, the fairness is such a big issue. Everyone wants to look fairer than what they are. So I was very surprised to get this picture where I saw the contrast between the color of her face and her hands. And this is from the time they spend, and this is what we found out, they spend it anywhere between 3 to 4 hours getting dressed before they go to meet their clients or for a performance. And so I was really impressed with her hair. I didn't know, I first thought that it was a wig, but if you look closely, it's not a wig, it's actually her hair. They put this thing called a gel, called a pomade into it, and they make it stiff and then convert it into very beautiful, beautiful styles at the back of their head. So, and this was my ticket. I always take pictures of my ticket so that I remember which show that I went to. So it was one of our tickets to our performances. And the next 2 pictures, I think, are in the theater. So this was a picture of the theater where we were sitting quite at a distance, but totally able to see. And it was a very, very lovely experience. And we were really lucky as to what happened is it was Sakura season. So there were tourists all over, and the tickets were almost impossible to get. So we walked in, and this was in Kyoto, not in Tokyo. So this was in Kyoto near the Ginza, and we walked in to get tickets, and she said they were all sold out. And we were coming back. We'd gone to another place, we'd gone to Osaka and Kaio-San, and then we were coming back to Kyoto for a night. We tried to get it for that night. And even that night, it was unavailable. It was only available 2 days out. And we walked out, and as we walked out, 2 people came and returned their tickets. So my friend and I were able to actually get tickets for this. Initially, we were 4, but when we came back to Kyoto, 2 of them had left from Osaka. So we really lucked out and got tickets to see this show. And it's a great experience. This is one time when I was able to get a picture of and I can't remember whether they gave permission or I sneaked a picture. I've done that sometimes, so I don't really remember. But I know that at one point they had said that we could take pictures of some of the performances. Again, this was one of the dances. So this, and I don't know, Sanjay, if I didn't see any pictures of Fujiyama with you, but this is another beautiful, beautiful experience. The mountain it's not, and I don't know the details of how high it is, but when you pass it, it's just one of the most amazing experiences to go. So from Tokyo, my first trip, what we did was from Tokyo, we took a bullet train up to Hakone, and we stayed in Hakone, and we tried to get, we went on the next day to see the Fujiyama, the Mount Fuji. But what happened was it was hot weather, warm weather, and we didn't think that it was possible to see Mount Fuji. I'm sorry, we thought we would be able to see Mount Fuji, but what happened is that suddenly winter happened over there in spring. So it turned so cold that Mount Fuji Hakone was completely covered in snow. So we really thought we wouldn't be able to see Mount Fuji. But anyway, I forgot about this picture. So one very, very popular thing on this bullet train, and Shia wanted us to have, and all this was part of my tour. So, these are the things that you actually miss and you don't know about if you go on your own. They said that one iconic feature of the bullet train, and that all the Japanese do, is when you go through their train station, they buy their little bento boxes. So she literally gave us coupons to go in, buy a bento box, and then you eat it on your train, which is one of the few times they allow you to eat food there because they're super clean. And so this was my little bento box. Found it very difficult to figure out what is inside. And sometimes when you look into the bento boxes and you see all these shapes and things, you're wondering whether you could eat it. But this was either it was a pork cutlet or a chicken cutlet with rice. And so this was my bento box. So then we did go through to Fujiyama, but we did go through the Mount Fuji. But this is on the way out from Fuji, we got a small glimpse of Mount Fuji. But if you go to the next slide, I think I can tell you what happened there. So this was our guide. She was a novice. This was her first. We were her first clients, and you won't believe it that we were 14 Americans, of which 13 were women, and one was a couple. So there was just one guy on our trip. So you can imagine how stressed she was. The amount of trouble that I think all the 13 women gave her she was like, okay, if I've handled 13 American women, I can handle anybody. That was her last comment to us. So we went to Mount Fuji. There's a point where the tours take you. It's across from Mount Fuji, where you get these beautiful views of Mount Fuji. And we went there, and it was a curtain of fog. You couldn't see anything beyond about, say, maybe 10, 12 feet. And Mount Fuji was way across on us. And so we couldn't see anything. Waited for about an hour or two, and then finally, they had timings with the conductor tours. The driver had to go. She had to bring us back. Maybe there was a dinner reservation. I don't remember. We got into the bus, and then the driver felt so sad looking at our sad faces that he said to her, you know what? It's okay. I'll take my time. You let them wait another 15, 20 minutes. we got out of the bus and we got out of the bus and we heard her yell, and this whole thing, it was like a curtain opened up and we saw Mount Fuji in the distance, and that's her crying. She literally cried because she was so happy that we were able to see Mount Fuji. So it was very, very, very sweet. So this is my friend who went with me on my first trip. And that's again, when it cleared up, that's those pictures of Mount Fuji. And it's a very beautiful sight, not because the mountain is large or high or anything. It's just the way it's situated and the kind of view you get from it. And it's snow-capped almost all through the year. So you get this beautiful, beautiful view from all around. And then when you're on the bullet train, pretty much, you get a view from it for about 20 minutes when you're going on your way from Tokyo to either Hakone or Kyoto. And that's us seeing that expression on our faces when you saw Mount Fuji for the first time. Yeah, this is another just a view when it opened up, and it literally stayed open for us for like 5-10 seconds, and then she was back again covered with the fog. This is Hakone. This was how much snow there was. And none of us, because we were going there during spring, had any really warm clothes. It was just Hakone that was fully covered with snow. And it was one of the parks. I think somebody had either made a thing or something was covered completely with snow. But I just wanted to show you all how much snow they could get in spring. And this first trip happened between March 24th to about April 15th. And this is us this is in the train trying to, or the bus trying to get this was from Hakone, then we went to Kyoto by coach. So we were just waiting to get another view of Mount Fuji. Now this is on my second trip. When we got the second trip, we did it on our own. We went to Hakone, we took this boat trip, and that day the whole entire day you could have gone through, and we got this views of Mount Fuji from every possible angle. We got it from our coaches, we got it from the restaurant. This was from a restaurant top. We'd gone there for lunch, and you could see Mount Fuji that close. Perfect blue skies, and then this beautiful snow-capped mountain. Same thing. This is just another. Okay, so now this will be a little bit of it's similar to what Sanjay has, except I just wanted to show pictures from my angle, in the sense that Sanjay's got a very, very good camera, and all my pictures are mostly from my cell phone. So I just wanted to show you sakuras. Sanjay, you can go slide through each one slowly, and it's all around the same areas. It's around the Maguro River. It's on the Philosopher Walk, and these are mixed. But what the difference was between on my first trip, when we, again, like Sanjay had mentioned, you look for dates, and when you book your tickets to go to Japan for Sakura, you look at the dates, and when you're booking it month in advance, 2 months in advance, or maybe sometimes even more. So we looked at the dates, and we had decided that this was the ideal time for the Sakura. If you didn't get Sakura in Tokyo, we would get it when we reached Kyoto or Osaka, because that's further up north. And now 2 days before we left, we looked at the reports, and it had talked about the Sakura being, the buds had started to open. So we said, okay, perfect. And another thing, that Sakura lasts only 2 weeks. Not even 2 weeks. I think it's about 10 days to 12 days. So when we heard that the buds had opened, and in 4 days or 3 days we would be in Tokyo, we said, okay, we're definitely going to get to see Sakura, if not in Tokyo, at least in Kyoto. We land up in Tokyo, and the first meeting we have with our guide, she's like, I'm so sorry, but I don't think we will see any Sakura in Tokyo, because they got this frost. I mean, you can see what Hakone happened. It's so cold. So once the frost comes out, or the temperatures go down, the buds closed. So Tokyo, pretty much everything was closed. We saw no Sakura. And many of the pictures that you'll see later were for my second trip, where we land up in Tokyo, and literally we get out of the airport, and from the day, and that particular time, the Sakura lasted from the day we landed in Tokyo till the day we left. So it was like Sakuras raining everywhere. So if you see, and the pictures as we screen through, as Sanjay screens through, wherever there was light Sakura, that was my first trip. And where you see abundant Sakura was my second trip. So This was with my first trip, so it was us and some of the girls, some of the ladies, the 13 ladies who made that guide cry not once, but at least 5 times during our entire trip. I think this is also my first one, or maybe this may be my second one. Yeah, this is my favorite pose. I always have to have one pose like this everywhere. This is the second trip. You can see how much sakura there was. And this was in the park that was across from Kyoto that Sanjay was talking about, where there was not only flowers, but the flowers were on the trees, and then the whole area on the ground was covered with petals. So it was sakura everywhere. Wherever you saw, there was sakura, and the combination of the pink and the white, and the white ones are snow white, and the pink are absolutely absolute lovely pink, and then the green trees in between was, I mean, it's something to behold. Yeah, and of course this was, I think, a selfie. So Sanjay, you get your selfie. But yeah, there was this beautiful, beautiful flowers. I also wanted the close-up of some of the flowers. These are the three, the three of us who, I think this is the prospect, the Philosopher Walk, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, sorry, this is still the park in Tokyo. You can actually, these are all sakura, Sanjay. You can just kind of little bit skip through them. I just wanted, so these were the 4 of us. I just wanted, these are the 4 of us. And these 4 have been my steady travel companions. They came with us when Sanjay, Shulekha, and I did Israel together. And Meena, that's a girl who's next to me. She's mostly my roommate when we travel a lot. And we've done, I would say, what, 10, 12 countries after we did. Israel was our first. And since then, I've done maybe 12 or even more. And we were the same 4 who were going to we were doing a river cruise from Lake Como to Amsterdam this September, which every time I think of, I kind of feel like really bad that we had to cancel. But one day. Can go ahead. And this one, I just want, and this is, actually, if you can go back to the previous one, Sanjay. Yeah, this one is that same by the Magoro River. And what I loved about this picture to me was that it's like a picture postcard. I was like, and I know we have some painters in our group here. If anyone wants to paint this one, I can send this one to you. And this was when the sakura had frozen, and so there's not that much of sakura. But this particular picture is one of my favorite of, when you're looking at a landmark picture, this is one of my favorites. So I just put this there, even though there's not that much sakura. And this is a by lane. This is one little lane in, this is by the river, but the other one was in Kyoto by the river. And this was a park in Kyoto, and I've only put one picture because some of them, I had too many and I had to choose just one. So there's a park there, and during Sakura season, on one Saturday, only one Saturday, they open up the park and they light up the trees. And it's like really you're transported into fairyland. Every tree is lit up in different colors. And you don't see it, you actually don't see the sakura much. It's some kind of a festival. And so I just wanted to present this one picture to you. It's just the most beautiful sight. And we lucked out being there on that one particular Saturday. There were long lines to get in, but at the end of the day, it was completely worth it. Okay, now we come down to Kaio-San. Now, Kaio-San is something that I don't know how many people have heard of it, and whether I had not heard of it. I didn't know the existence of Kaio-San, but with my second trip, when we decided we would do Japan on our own, Gunny, who's my friend who travels with me, what he did was he sent us the itinerary that his alma mater, which is NYU, had sent him. But he says, I don't want to go with them because, again, you're limited with certain things. I want to be able to do it on my own, but look at this itinerary to both me and Meenal and see what you like. Now, they had this place called Kaio-San, and both Meenal and I were fascinated by what it was. And they didn't have time, so they decided that they would cut short their trip and not after Osaka, and we stayed on beyond in Kyoto one day, and we did this Kaio-San. Now, Kaio-San is the most, I would say, today, if you ask me what was my highlight of Japan, my first trip, I would have said the Sakura. With my second trip, since I'd already seen Sakura once and I saw a prolific Sakura the second time, I would say Kaio-San was my next favorite. So what it is, it's a temple settlement. It's up in Mount Koya, and it's south kind of Osaka. And it's high. It's about 850 feet above sea level. And it's the center of the Shintoism and Buddhism. And first, it was introduced first and built by Kobodashi in 805. And that place includes his mausoleum and the cemetery where all the various monks and all the known, many of the senior Buddhist leaders, etc. are buried. It's one of the amazing place to experience temple life. So you actually go, if you go there and you stay in a temple. So every Buddhist monastery, every temple, they call it a temple there. Every temple has a monastery, and then attached to that they have living quarters where you can go and you literally live in a little, it looks like a little ryokan. If you've looked at the Japanese hotels, which are called ryokans, very simple, very basic, but it's right in the temple. We were lucky to get a place there. And when I started looking for a place, the number 5 recommended places were not available, but we got one, and there was no way that we found anything that was unsatisfactory about it. What you do is you stay there, you live like how the monks do, except it's little bit more comfortable, and you get a taste of their life. And the best part is in the morning at 5 a.m. they have the first service, and you're allowed to go and attend that service. And that to me was one of the most sublime experiences I've ever had. It's very dark, and so if you go forward, you'll actually see what it's like. It's dark, and the whole thing is completely covered with lights, lanterns and lights, and
can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oops. Okay, I don't know how I got on mute. But anyway, to get before I go to
mute again.
Why is it going on mute? Anyway, to get to Kaio-San, what happens is it's not very easy to get to Kaio-San. It's about 800 meters up there. So what you're doing is you take a train from Kyoto to a small little town, and one of the maps that if you actually go forward, Sanjay, I have a little map that shows you how to get there. So this is just getting over there. Yes. Yeah. So the map tells you how you get there. So what you're doing is you're taking one intercity train from Kyoto or Osaka to this place that is called we took a train from Kyoto to Osaka, and then at this place called Shin-Amaya, we had to transfer to meter gauge. And then from meter gauge, we come down to this end of this place. Again, I'm very bad with names. I completely mess up names. But you come to the end of this rail, the meter gauge rail line, and then you take the funicular up to the mountain. Now, from Kyoto, Osaka, there's no other way to get to Kaio-San. I believe from the complete other end of the mountain, there is a very, very bad road, which is not habitable for visitors or even locals, but it's mostly for transporting the food and all the supplies and everything. So then you take a bus that you go up. You take the funicular up the mountain. At the end of the mountain, when you get up onto the top, there are buses, and the bus has the names of the temple that you're going to stay in, and then they drop you right outside that temple. And it is, that journey takes, it's quite a long journey. It takes about, I think, 5 hours it took us to get there, and further again to wait for the bus and then get to the temple. But it's totally worth it, because once you get there, you're transported to a different land completely. Now there are many mountains around, but this is like a basin in the middle of all these mountains. There's formed a basin, and that's where Kaio-San is. So it's very easy to move around with. There are about 50 temples. We spent about a day and a half, which is one night there. We landed like around lunchtime. And this was the temple entrance to the temple that we stayed in. It was called Temple Shaizan. So very, very cute, very, very sweet. And then if you move forward, it'll give you an idea of actually what I think we missed something, huh? No, it's okay. So then this was in the morning, when you are getting ready to go to this 5 a.m. They come there on outside your window or your door, and they ring this little bell which tells you that it's time to wake up. And we followed them, and I saw the monks going. The one in blue is the head monk, and then the 3 of them who follow are his helpers. So I thought that I think we followed, and we had about, I would say, 20 people staying in the temple. And only the temple, you can only go to the function, you can only go to the service of the temple that you're staying in. We saw some of the bigger ones, and we asked if we could go to one more, and we couldn't. It only allows you. So it's beautiful. And this is a picture I took in the morning, where you can kind of see how the whole thing is. It's dark, and it's lit only with at least, I would say, 30, 40 candles and about 300, 400 lights on top. And there's a story about the lights, and I couldn't find my notes on it, but if I do find it at some point, I'll send it back. There was somebody who came from Kyoto, and he found so much peace and solace in Kaio-San that he donated to all the temples 350 lamps. Every temple has 350 of his lamps. So if you go to the next slide, you can... this is still the shrine, and these are the lamps that there are. So every temple that you go to, actually the one before... yes, these are the lamps. There are 350 of these lamps lit up in every temple that you can go into. And you actually, in the temple we stayed, you get to see it. But as you go into the others, you see them that are unlit, because you're not there for a service. This is one of the times. It was another monastery. So these are all just shrines that were around, different temples and different shrines that were around Kaio-San. Once the temple service was over, we went to the various temples that were all around, and we tried to maybe see about 10 of them. This particular monastery is not a temple stay, but it's a monastery, which is a learning center. So very often in Shintoism, the locals try to learn, and they go through a training course and everything. And this is where sometimes they come to. And as part of that, they allow tourists to come for the first half session, when they initiate you into Buddhism. So it was very nice, because we both went, we got the flag, we got little booklets, and they actually then call you their Ameeta-san and Minal-san, and then you go up, and then they give you their little things that they do that's the first step in when they want you to initiate you into their culture. That was a lovely experience that we were able to see. Other than that, then this is the way to the monastery, and this, like I said, this was one that was Kaio-San was founded, and this was where the Daiso, his mausoleum, and in addition to his mausoleum, all the other various monks, they had their mausoleum there. So this was on our way through the cemetery. You can go forward. And at the end of it this is like one of the, where they have their beautiful rock garden. You can just sit there all around it. There's place to sit, and there were tons of people meditating. And I think I didn't want to disturb anybody, so I didn't take a picture of anybody meditating. But at the far left, the part of it where you don't see, there are benches, and then everyone sits there and does meditation. There are beautiful rock garden in front of you. Now this, I'm just going to, you can actually skip. So when we landed in Kaio-San, and vegetarians will love this because the entire Kaio-San is vegetarian food. And it is one, I would say that from whatever I had in Japan, this was the best food that I ever had. It was just unbelievable food. It was so delicately prepared. It was just simple things like pickled vegetables, rice, and a broth. But just look at the way. Now, this was a restaurant that we went to. I've still come down to the food that they served you in the temple. The temple actually serves you food. This was when we landed in Kaio-San. We quickly went for a quick lunch, and then we left to go to our temple. This is also, we had some dessert there. Same thing. This was still one of the meals there. Now, this was our room. This was exactly our room. And this was the way it was when we came into our temple stay room. There were little instructions for us. There was no bed. There was no thing, just this little table and one little stool that was there. So, and a small little room, beautiful, neat, clean, tiny little room. And then this was our dinner. So once we came, we rested, we went out, we saw all the other temples, and we came back. And so she asked us if we were ready for dinner. And this was our dinner. It was, I mean, again, as I said, it's just an unbelievable experience. Little things, but so beautifully presented. And this was in our room. They bring it into your room for you to have dinner. And once dinner is done, they ask you to step out for a bit. And then out of those closets, they pulled out, and I don't think I put a picture of that. I should have, I forgot. But they put out our beds, and they have a thick, beautiful mattress put on the floor. And then the dining room literally changes into your little bedroom. And it's thing, and lights out at 9, and then you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And only thing is there are common bathrooms. The bathrooms are outside, and they are spotlessly clean. And every room has a certain hour when you can actually go for your shower, and then they clean it up after that. So these are all the meals that we had. This is the same dinner. Okay, now this was the next morning after the 5 a.m. Session at the Buddhist monastery, at the temple. This is our breakfast. And everyone who's there in the temple has breakfast together. And then they have these little tables set up for you and with your name on it. And that's where you go and sit, and then they serve you breakfast all together. So it was very, very cute experience. This is all of us. I mean, we're sitting there having breakfast together. Okay, now I'm coming down. I come to what I call my favorite parts. And these are just glimpses of what I found my favorite. So this was the Fox Temple that Sanjay had told you. And I had no idea. Again, as I said, I read about, I'm crazy. I read about the restaurants. I read about the people and the lifestyles and the activities. I don't really read so much about the architectural or the shrines or stuff. I go there and I experience it. But that particular day, I for some reason had a orangish reddish kurta and my scarf covering my head. And so it blended so well with those gates that Sanjay had showed you about. So this is one of my, picture-wise, selfie-wise, I would say this is one of my favorite. And this is, I just had to show a picture of her crying at Mount Fuji. It was just too cute. And then the next favorite part of mine, and as I put in favorite part of mine, are the babies of Japan. Oh my God. I would just want to pick this baby up and cuddle and bring him home. And the best part is that he was sitting by we were sitting in a restaurant in Kyoto, I think, Osaka, Kyoto, I forget. And we were sitting there and I could feel somebody's eyes on me and I could feel a grin and a laugh. And then I turned around and this baby was trying to attract my attention. He was just too cute. And these are all the cutie babies. I mean, every time I see them, I would say, can I please take a picture? And I take the pictures because I'm just fascinated by faces and by, just humans and adults and everybody. And it's a beautiful race. This girl had come from the provinces of Japan. I think this was and I have a picture with her. So this must have been from the provinces of Japan she'd come. And so they were dressed in a lot of their traditional outfit. And I took a picture with her and she kept sitting with me and trying to talk to me. And we are trying to talk in sign language. She was trying to ask me where I was from, because I don't think she had ever seen an Indian girl. And so she was trying to ask me. And then later somebody passed by and translated and found out that she was asking which country I was from. So this was another sweetheart. And this is you've seen some pictures where Sanjay's talked about where all of them dress up as in their kimonos. And so, of course, I took pictures and I have some pictures with them as well. And this is again, so it's not showing fully. I don't know why it's not showing completely. But anyway, this was a boys football or a soccer team that was on the train with us. And we were all 14 of us were on this trip, and they were always fascinated by the sport. So they were all talking with us and friendly with us because they wanted to know about American football and American soccer. So it was a school team that was going for a match, or actually, no, I'm sorry, they come back after winning the match. So they were in like really high spirits. Again, some of the girls that I had, oh, this is the same one. I had some pictures with them. Okay, now this is the activities, and I've been fun and activities that we did. Most of these are from my first trip, and I don't know how we are on time. Are we okay on time?
Yeah, you got 20 minutes more. That's fine.
Okay. So let's just go through. I'll just go through these very quickly because I want to do some little bit of concentration on Kaio-San also. So you can skip through. So I'll just talk about the various activities and then you can just look at the pictures. So, okay, this one I have to tell you about. So this particular thing, it says Koko di eta saiko no mono. Now, what happened was, and this is one of the things that I'm saying is that it's a great opportunity when you go with a group. So at one point, we were going somewhere and the itinerary said secret. So she was taking us to the market, and then she didn't give us this. I found it later and I get a copy of it, but she said these words and you had to repeat the words. You could write the word down, but you could not take a picture of her saying the words. Once she said this, actually just go back. Yeah, once she said this, what we had to do was we had to go, and they gave us 1,200 lira, put us into groups of 4, and we had to go asking people what this word meant and go and buy this particular thing, whatever this meant. So it was so much fun. We were 6 groups of 4, or we were 5 groups of 4 running all over the markets trying to find this. Now, why I put this here, it just goes to show the people. So we were looking lost. And so this one couple came and stopped us and asked us what we wanted. We're trying to say the words. He couldn't get it. So he'd stop and pick up somebody else and they would make us say the words and get it. Ultimately, we had 15 or 20 people helping us. Nobody got the word till the end. And when they got it, it was so funny that they finally laughed and laughed and laughed. So anyone can guess what this thing means and what we bought? Nobody, I guess. I mean, it's hard. It says the best thing available in this market. So you could have bought anything and taken it back and you all were winners. So we went and got dry shrimp. People got mooncakes, people got cookies, people got all kinds of things. So this was a real fun activity. So you can go next.
Next good.
So this was a tea. I'm just going to go quickly through this because each one is, we've got quite a bit to go. I don't want to take up too much time. So this was a tea ceremony that we went for. Next. So then we also went for a home created, they do a lot of things by hand. This was a music concert by a couple who does music concerts with instruments that they make themselves. So we went for that, and they were teaching us about the instrument and letting you try it out and all that. So all these things we don't get to do when you're doing on your own. And this is what all the stuff that actually fascinates me. Okay, next. Okay, now this was making. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. You can go on. We don't really need to stop at 3:30. And if someone wants to drop off, they can.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So this was a sushi making session. So we had it all laid out. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see next 3 or 4 slides kind of show you where we learned how to make sushi. So this was the ultimate sushi that we made. Then over here, what happens is another very, very nice feature that happens in with the conductor tour is they divide you into groups of 5 and 6 and 4, and you do a home visit. Now, each of us have a completely different experience altogether. We landed up going to this one woman, and we were 4 of us, and we landed up going to her house, and she was an Ikebana teacher. So some of them went to just business people homes and different homes. And then you come back and then you talk about each of your experience. And each of the groups have a completely different experience by themselves. So the next one. This is the 4 of us who actually landed. 3 of us went with her. And the funny part was the 2 of us are friends. And the girl in the middle is the lady in the middle is the one whose house we went to. And the 4th one is the other one who was from California. And she's the one who made our guide cry every day pretty much. So next one. Now this is where we went to learn how to make mochi. So you can go to the next slide. We were making mochi. And then we went to another place in a village on our way, and near Hakone, we went to this village, and we went to this village that actually makes soba noodles. And here again, what they did was they divided us into groups, and we went into different homes, and we made soba noodles with the hostess. So you can go ahead. Then here is the same hostess also taught, actually go one slide back, because that's the one where actually, I think you've jumped. Yeah, this is the one where she's teaching us how to make the soba noodles. Then the next one. And then they taught us origami. You actually gave us each of them. And cranes are very popular, so they taught us origami. This is the one who taught me, and this is the origami thing that I made. So I was super thrilled, but I came back and tried it, and I couldn't even figure out how to do it. Yeah, this is just different things that we did. Can go ahead, next. Okay, now here, I think this is the mochi. Some of the pictures may have got mixed up. So this is where we made mochi. This is where we made Japanese paper. So they boil the sap of the tree, and then they boil it, and then they put into these flat little things. And we all made our own little greeting cards. And then you get dry flowers, and then you you make your arrangement into these little squares, and then they dry them up. And then that evening, the place dropped our cards that we had all individually made, dropped them off at our hotel. So I still have my little cards somewhere that I'd made, which is a lovely, lovely experience, because the Japanese paper is beautiful paper. Next one. And this is on our way, and this was a lovely restaurant that was on the way, and this is where we had one of the best food ever, because the entire food was made of root vegetables. It was a Buddhist, Zen Buddhist restaurant, and the owner also makes these instruments. So he had actually shown us these instruments and how he makes them, and how, so this is one, it's a music instrument. You actually click it and it makes sound, and if you click it yourself, all it does is click, 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 but they make the most amazing sounds out of them. Can go next. So the dance, then the same one can show us the dance. This is another origami that they taught us how to make there. And they taught us how to make little puppets, and that was the cutest puppet that I made. It was with leftover dough that they harden, and then they make these little puppets. And this was just a picture. I mean, Japan, everything that you get from a sandwich. I mean, we went to this restaurant, and one of these pictures has that sandwich. You feel sacrilege to eat that sandwich. Everything from a sandwich to a pastry to a cookie to everything is a work of art. There's nothing. There was this place that had sandwiches in the display, and it was like, my God, I'm going to buy this. How am I going to even bite into it and ruin it? So this picture is just to show you the beauty of everything that's there. And just pretty things, and this was the cutest. I found a place, a jewelry store that had my name on it. So of course I had to click it. It was so funny. And I asked them what it meant, and she tried to explain to me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Okay, now this one also we'll skip through a little bit. It's just various food items. And Japan, again, we talked a little bit about food, where the vegetarian and non-vegetarian. If we hadn't talked earlier, I would have just explained this, but I can't remember each restaurant's name and all that. I have to go back to my pictures too, but I just wanted to give us a spectrum of the amazing food and the way they present their food, which is the most beautiful. And this is the pancake that I was talking about, and it's called actually the previous slide has the name if you go back, but anyway, it's okay. I can think you go there, and it is called the okonomiyaki. And it is, It's this, it's a grated cabbage, and in between the cabbage there's cheese and other things, but then you choose the meat that goes into it, and you sit around the big open grill, and then they make it for you. And this is the most famous place in, I think this was in Kyoto. Yeah, you can just skip on the food, just little food places, and these are all the fast food, the stuff that we had on the way. Okay, now we come down to Hiroshima, and this is the I mean, in the previous talk by Hundi, he had talked about the museum, the Holocaust Museum in Israel, and we all went there, and it was towards the end of our trip, and that trip was like completely gut-wrenching. I mean, that museum was like gut-wrenching and puts you in a complete different space altogether. Going to the Hiroshima Memorial was the same. It was just, I mean, unbelievable. And this is the Hiroshima, the bomb dropping on Hiroshima was the point in time where, and actually, you know, I will skip through this. At one point in time, maybe Hiroshima can be a whole thing by itself if somebody else has also been, but it's just so much history and so much there. But in short, when America dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, actually just go back to that slide. Yeah. So when Hiroshima dropped the bomb, and if you see that little picture there, and I have the picture of the thing, everywhere they have that this thing. It happened in 1945, and it happened on August 6th, 1945, and exactly at 8:20 a.m. And what is most amazing is that changed Japanese culture overall completely. The entire museum, there's no blame on anyone dropping that bomb. They don't even call it the atom bomb. It's always called the A bomb. And they always refer to is when the A bomb was dropped on us. Nowhere did we see where America dropped the atom bomb. Nowhere do we see any complaining about it or criticizing America for dropping the bomb. All they talk about is we paid for what we did, and we will change our lives such that this will never happen to us, and it will never happen anywhere in the world again. So it's just and that changed because I don't know if you all know the history of it, but right after the atom bomb, after Hiroshima happened and Nagasaki happened, they actually completely got rid of the military, and they changed to a completely different society where everything was Buddhism or Shintoism. Shintoism, again, as a religion, they have 10 different things that they follow, and I have a slide on it, but I didn't put this in here because, again, it's a lot, going very, very deep into it. But basically, Hiroshima is when the atom bomb was dropped during World War II. It's a beautiful, beautiful, peaceful memoriam. And then, as you see in the next slides, there's this Gembaku Dome. There's the Gembaku Dome. Actually, just go back because I want to go through the order. I'll tell you when to go next. Yeah, there's a Gembaku Dome, and which is the only original dome that stands there. Now it has been repaired and but that's the only original monument that stands there. About 150,000 people were killed. This included soldiers, and they say that it was among 40 to 70,000 children, and that's because there was a big school and there was something there. And there's also a very special children's monument where all over the world children come and make these little cranes and then drop it. And also there's this monument of this little girl called Sadako Sasaki, and she was 2 years old when the bomb was dropped, and she was impacted by the radiation, and she survived. I think she passed away at the age of 8 or 10, so there's a memorial to her. So now we can actually skip through the memorials. This is her, and and that's why there are cranes there, because there's paper cranes, because once she was 2 years old, and then she was able to she was diagnosed with cancer at 3, I think, and from 3 or 4, and then she survived for 4 years. She couldn't do too much, so she started making these cranes. Therefore, that's her with her, and then the memorial, the crane on top of her holding up the crane. This is the original dome as it was when they first discovered it after the bombing, the only one that was available. And this is how they have now actually made it. They've kept the top structure as the original. And this is actually just gives you an idea of where it is. And that's I just wanted, because this is where in Hiroshima, this is, if you look, this is the Peace Memorial, that's the park, and exact spot where that, where the A bomb was dropped, and then where the dome is that survived. And there's a story about that dome, and why that particular dome survived is because of some kind of atmospheric pressure that this was created. It created like a cloud-like thing. And so, I mean, I have to really go into those details. This is new Hiroshima from the Peace Memorial. This is what you see. It's the new Hiroshima. Can go ahead, next. And this is the children's memorial, where the children put up their memorials to the children. It's called the thing of City of Hope, and all those little cranes all over. So they make cranes, and then there's lots of paper lying around over there. So you can actually make a crane and drop it in the memory of any of the child that was lost, or just in general, you can drop cranes. And so then they collect those cranes in memory of that little girl. Okay, now it's miscellaneous. I think this one we can go really fast, because I think what a lot of what Sanjay covered was here. So now in Tokyo, there's another shrine called Kamakura, and Kamakura is about an hour's. It's about an hour's journey by train from Tokyo, and actually one of the intercity passes, because it's not Tokyo, it takes you there, and it's the center of their modern Zen temples. I mean, it's dozens and dozens of Buddhist Zen temples and Shinto sites. It's one where there's both of them are all in the same place, and there's so many of them. But it's the most recognized spot there is called the Kotoku-in temple, and that's where this giant Buddha, and it is 13 meters high. It's not the highest one that they have. They have the highest one in Nara, but this is the one that's the second highest. And the beauty of this one is it's completely made of bronze, and it's still standing. After, if you recollect history, in the 15th century, there was a major tsunami in Tokyo, and so much of it was wiped out. But this particular Buddha stayed and survived that tsunami. So this is in Kamakura. Again, this is just another picture of the close-up of the face of the Buddha. And then you can see Sakura again. Everywhere there was Sakura. This is my second trip. So the first trip didn't take us to Kamakura, so we were really happy when we did it on our own that we were able to go to Kamakura.
I'm leaving, but Suica will drive from here.
Yeah, and it's very few slides left. So, I mean, pictures left. So that's fine. Thanks, Sanjay.
Sure.
Okay. The next one. So this is I just absolutely love this picture, and it's. I actually had to crouch down and sit down and get this picture of the whole Buddha with my iPhone. Okay, next one. I can't remember where this is, so I'll just go to the next, because some of them I didn't pay attention, because later I found out that, when I found that Sanjay was doing, this is Nara. And so in the center of Honshu, in the center of the island, there is one of the most famous, again, this is a very, very iconic temple of Japan. And it's and you go there from Kyoto or from Osaka. And it's got a lot of temples all in this one huge park. And it's like a deer park. You may have heard of the deer park, and it's a deer park. And it's like a parachute. It literally covers the whole area. And deer they roam freely in this park. And it's the site of the Toraji temple, which is, this is the Buddha, which is inside, but he's 15 meters high. And he's also a bronze Buddha. Now, this is the Buddhist temple. And on the other side is a Shinto sign of Kasuga Taisha, which that particular place has about 3,000 lanterns. He gave 3,000 lanterns to that particular site, and he gave 350 lanterns to the ones in Koyasan. Now this one, unfortunately, they had some repair going on to where the lanterns were. We could only look through the windows. And now next one, the next slide.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, this is the giant 15-meter high Buddha, which is a little bit just 2 meters shy of the one in Kamakura. Next one. And this is the one where we could get the pictures of those 3,000 lanterns. And I believe there are certain days in a year when you're allowed to go in and they light it. It's some of their festivals, but it wasn't happening when we were there. Next slide. This is the Shinto Shrine that's in the same Nara Deer Park. This is the entrance to that shrine. Next slide. So now the interesting thing about these deer, actually you can go to the next slide, you'll see more deer there. And so the deer, this is the most interesting part of the deer is, you know how in Japanese culture, no matter when they see you 10 times. If they go away and they see you come back and you come back to them, they bow to you. All these deers bow to you. All over they sell little dry, you're not supposed to feed them anything that you bring. They sell you little dry pellets and you feed them, but you hold the pellet in front of them and the deer bow to you, and that's when you feed them. That's unbelievably. And literally sometimes they'll pass you by and then they bow to you just like the Japanese bow. So we've never known. I've asked a lot of people and they said it just so happened that when they started, this has been since early centuries, that when they see the monks and all that bowing to each other, and maybe somebody fed them when they did that, and then they completely just do that all the time. They won't accept a pellet without first bowing to you. So it was very, very touching and very, very cute. Next one. This shrine, I thought Sanjay had covered, and so therefore I'm sorry again, as I said, that I don't remember names until I had to go back and counted. So I'm just going to skip through this because I think it was somewhere where he didn't go, and therefore I assumed that he was covering the shrines and this one would be covered. But this was somewhere out of Kyoto. Once you Preeti and Kedar, you post it, I will just add the name of the shrine and give you a little bit of history on that because I don't remember now.
Definitely. Thank you, Ameeta. And thanks for remembering so many names. I don't know how we are doing that.
Next one. Next one. Yeah, this is the same. So this is, you go by ferry, and it's a shrine that you go by ferry. And as you see it from a distance, and then you go close and close and close. And then at some point in time, high tide, it completely submerges, and you can only see that top little section of it. So it's pretty cool. You see it when you go, and then when you're coming back, it's gone further deep down as the tide comes in. All these shrines were covered by Sanjay, so we can just skip through. This is in Tokyo, and this is the one in the one that was next to that big golden temple, golden shrine. These are my pictures of that, the same golden shrine in the park. It's a circular park, and so you actually walk around it. And these are the two main shrines, but there are small little ones all across. And then everywhere, there was not much sakura here though. Yeah, we saw this. This is the Fox Temple. This is 2 years later, where I forgot to wear my orange and red. Same thing. And this picture was like in Kyoto, it was raining, and we had gone, this was Osaka. I don't remember. We'd gone shopping one day, and we were looking for something, and this was like we were up on the steps, and it was raining, and I just found it so cute, this picture. Just shops on either side, and a sea of Japanese going down to shop with their cute little umbrellas. Or this must have been, on the way to the Fox Temple. And this was on the way to the Fox Temple. And this is my last slide, where I'm looking to see when I can go back again. So that's it. Thank you. I'm going to put my, So yeah, so this is, thanks for patiently waiting. I'm really, I mean, it went quite long. So
Hey, Ameeta. Ameeta, for the
Yeah.
shrines, is there any dress code for the going to the shrine?
Yeah, the dress code is that no sleeveless, no part of your shoulder showing, no culottes, no shorts, no nothing. So basically, a very modest dressing. Otherwise, there's no particular thing. The only thing, some points, they give you a scarf when you go into the internal shrine. I can't remember which one it was, but no, you just basically, they say modest dressing.
Yeah, I had a similar question, Ameeta, because it's so high in culture and, they have so many customs. Well, I was wondering if you did any research on how, tourists are expected to behave and respond to people and public.
Yeah, so when you go, first thing is with our guide, with the first trip, we had a guide who gave you all those instructions. They send you those instructions in advance. Otherwise, when you go, and so that was my first trip with a guide. So I was we were prepared the second time. First time they prepared you, but otherwise in every hotel there are brochures, and the brochures tell you that, and they tell you in certain shrines what to do, what not to do, and then you generally follow. And the thing is that the people, I mean, it's unbelievable what the people are like. It's just can't even describe how sweet and polite they are. It's sacrilege to do something that you shouldn't do. And I've never seen anybody over there, even tourists from around the world, misbehaving or anything, because you just get into that frame of mind and that, that calmness thing. There's no fighting, there's no anger, I mean, like, example, at one point I went to a restaurant and I said, oh my God, I left my phone there, and I went back. And the guy said that the person at the counter said, no, you didn't leave it because it wasn't here. But I said, I had it with me. I know because I took a picture. It was in thing. And then, and me, I have a habit of leaving phones everywhere. And now that's why I have this, I should have shown a picture with to do's, is carry that little sling on the thing. And this was before that. This was my first trip, and I've left it in Turkey, and I thought I'd left it here. And so then actually my friend had left it, and my friend had picked it up. So he told me, he says, you will never lose your phone in Japan, because if you left it, maybe somebody picked it up, the first thing, go to the closest police station, and you will find your phone there, because nobody will steal it. Other than if a tourist does, there's no, but nobody steals it. So the people are just unbelievable. And that whole Hiroshima changed their whole thing. They said, all they want is tea. But again, we've got a different, and that's another story completely. I mean, there was one part of it which I didn't add, was that there was another talk of what happened at the nuclear blast, They took us to this one cafe where you saw, I said this was a cafe, but I didn't, there was a lot, I mean, too much to add. How much do you give people? But in that particular cafe was this couple who had survived the nuclear blast that happened in Fukushima. And but basically what they tell you is they changed completely after Hiroshima. There's no thing, but underlying, there's a lot of women's repression. Women are a very, very restrictive life for women. It's a male-dominated society. But then what some of the guide was telling us, the women are happy. They're looked after, and they say, we don't care. It's okay. The new generation is changing. There's more equality and there's more thing. But they're all workaholics. We drive around and you'll pass offices, and at 9 o'clock at night, there's somebody working over there. Very, very expensive. They live in very, very tiny homes. Even the wealthier homes are very small. And if you compare them to India apartments, even there I find that their homes are really small. Neat, clean, you can eat off the floor mostly. But yeah, so.
Yeah, and that deer Boeing was really amazing. I don't know how it has gone into their genes to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every one of them. And they say to you that we want to maintain it. So if you are passing by and they don't bow to you, it's fine. Don't do anything. But if you have a pellet in your hand and they don't bow, then you don't give them the pellet. Yeah. But you don't have to give the pellets. They just pass you by, they see you, they go, boop, Look, I mean, they go down like this at you. It's so cute. It's so cute.
So cute. And is there any way you can distinguish between Buddhist, structure and traditional Tangal Kanchta?
Shinto.
A Shinto and a Shinto.
Yeah. Yeah, so at this point that I won't be able to answer. Again, as I said, I go more in, based on my thing, you'll see what I go think. I love that part. I listen to it there. But the thing is that if you want to know more, you really have to read about it before and after and all that. But I know the principles are very different. The principles of Shintoism, there's no belief in Buddha, there's no belief. There are 10 principles. Don't harm, don't anger, no give alms, help the needy, no differentiation in age. And that's another thing with the bowing. It's not like a young person bows to the old person. It's each one bows to the other. I mean, there's no, like an old person you talk to, like, I mean, at this point where we went with that little game thing, everybody were bowing to us. And I'm like, I'm bowing to you because you've helped me, but they kept bowing to you. So it's a very different kind of society. So yeah, I know that, I mean, I don't know if structurally there is something that you can identify. I'm sure there is, but there's no Buddha statue, basically. Once you go in, you know that, because there's no Buddha statue in a Shinto temple. It's a shrine, and very often the Shinto ancestors or the Shinto monks or somebody there, maybe their mausoleum is there or their picture is there, and that's other thing.
Yeah. Veena Pachi just wrote the same thing. It's ancestor worship, Shintoism.
Right. But structurally, I can't remember what it is. There is. I mean, I know that when we were there and we were traveling, we could look at it and we could tell the difference. But right now, I mean, it's like, and the thing is also, the problem with me is in 2015 to 20 January, I put my footprint in 35 countries. So sometimes I mix China and Japan, I mix Europe and something. So I mix a little bit up. But yeah, for some of them, I have to go back and very often look at my notes. And also for some of the names, I have to, like in detail, the shrine especially, I have to go back to my pictures that are there, that actually, because I've got the names there, then I go by that to remember whatever.
Thank you to both of you. Amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Ameeta. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ameeta.
Thank you, Ameeta.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ameeta. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you. I thank God there were no technical difficulties. I would have had to hide my name in shame and not come out in public in KAOCA anymore if it didn't work, at least this way.
It was very nice.
Thanks, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ameeta and Sanjay, both of you. Really wonderful pictures.
Thank you.
Presentation. Thanks. Sanjay.
Thank you, Ameeta.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for attending this. Next week we will be having Deepa Rao taking us through the Baltic, Russia, Finland, and Sweden.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward, Deepa.
Yeah.
Looking forward, yeah.
Yeah.
But while we're saying thank you, Preeti and Kedar, if not for you, none of this would have been possible, really.
Yeah, thank you, Kedar, and
That's true.
very good.
Your ideas, your dedication.
Thank you, Ameeta.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again.
See you next week. Yeah.
People, the lady who meet the mochila bags from the Baltic.
Hello?
Someone is echoing.
Somebody's echoing.
Somebody who's got two things on at the same time is echoing, I think.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that the lady who was teaching a group of ladies in US how to make the mochila bags, she's from the Baltic. So you're covering that area to next Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Ameeta, did you try any Japanese paintings?
To draw?
Did you paint any traditional?
Yes, we did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did. Actually, it was more than a Japanese painting. We went to a Japanese museum, and at the Japanese museum, they gave you letters, and you wrote your name in the Japanese calligraphy letters. So that painting we did.
Lovely.
Wow.
What a peaceful experience. Even we
Yeah,
feel.
so that's why the tour, no, that all this you don't get when you do on your own. We don't know where to look. You don't even know existing. And now, okay, somebody wants to go, you can always follow up and Google and find out. But if this was my first trip we did on our own, we did only the shrines, the gardens, and the food.
Ameeta, which tour did you go through?
It's a tour company called Overseas Adventure Travel. I don't use them anymore after Japan, because imagine we were kind of senior citizens, and we were the youngest. They used to call us the babies, and we laughed because everyone was older. It's for a little bit of an older generation. They're a little slower than Gate 1, whom I now subsequently use, and I would use Gate 1. And Gate 1 never used to have this much of activities, but now Gate 1 has also started. Maybe Oat has a little bit more activity, because you know the older generation, as you go older, you can't walk so much, and you can't do so. They do one day of sightseeing, then one day maybe an activity where you drive to an activity. So I would look at, when I go somewhere, I look at the combination of the two companies and I choose now, but I've been doing Gate 1 since then.
Okay.
But this one was Overseas Adventure Travel.
Okay.
And it's nice the way your trips planned out. The first one was guided, so you saw, you know, what they show you, and then the second one was your own pace, so you could see.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go and stay there. Really wanted to stay 3 months and but then it's a tough place to do it on your own, because language is a problem, everything is a problem. So when these guys said they're going on their own, I said, okay, that's second best option for me, is to go and experience it not as a tourist. We went to all the touristy places, but we didn't do them like a tourist. We went like a local, local trains, figuring out, buying a pass, stopping and asking people for directions. And Gunny and Rita had lived there for 10 years, but they've subsequently lived here for 15. So this was, 12 to 15 years ago. They wanted to revisit some of the places. Sometimes Meena and I went separately because they wanted to revisit their old neighborhood and things like that. But by then we got used to finding out things on our own and going on our own.
Yeah.
That's nice.
How long was your self-paced trip?
Both were about, I would say, 15 days. But I think because the overall trip was 15 days, but Meenal and I extended to go to Kaio-San. So 3 extra days. So I would say 18 days, maybe 16 to 18. Yeah. So we stayed, they left for Osaka and flew out. We went to, stayed in Kyoto. And next day we went to Kaio-San. You need 2 full days, even if you have 1 night stay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so
But that was
Ameeta, I watched your pictures on the big screen. Awesome. Nice
really?
pictures.
Oh, thank you.
I'm watching it on my TV.
Yeah, my Sakura close-ups. My Sakura Moli close-ups.
They're very nice.
Yeah, they all look like screensavers.
Huh?
They all look like screensavers. They were perfect.
Yes.
And they were all with my iPhone. Not a single camera. I already carry my iPhone.
And I loved all your activities. Awesome.
I know I rushed through it a little bit because I felt we were running out of time.
Actually, I've heard it firsthand from you, so I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I heard your stories.
Yeah. So no, it was good. It was. I hope people enjoyed it.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Preeti and Kedar. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Hey, Kedar, I had one question for you. Kedar,
Yes.
since this was a music kind of tour, so I was wondering, on Zoom, can we play these clips? Because previous experiences there is a lag when you play any video.
So the ideal way to play videos on Zoom is you download the video onto your local drive and then you play it. If you play it from a shared drive like Google or Facebook, it doesn't come clear.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted a few clips I wanted to play, but I'm not sure because, you know, if it doesn't play well, then it looks all distorted and doesn't sound good. So,
Anna, if you download it to your local
okay.
drive and then play it,